Hey, Dr. Guida, thank you so much for joining the channel. It's great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Great to meet you.
Thank you so much. And to give the viewers at home a little background, so you are an OMSCS alum who now
Yes.
has a PhD and teaches at Pace University. Is that right?
Yeah. A lot
That's
has
so
happened
cool.
since then.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Man, and I've been looking online too. You have like a Wikipedia article and a website and like a lot of music projects that you do and stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm a very easily Googleable person.
That's so
I
cool,
think there's a
man.
lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there.
That's so cool. Yeah, I've been watching
Yeah.
some of your YouTube videos and things. Man,
Cool.
awesome. But okay, so yeah, I guess first question I have is when you were doing the OMSCS,
Mhm.
um, were you always set on doing a PhD, or was that something you kind of thought of later on in the program?
Um, oh, it was much, the my main, how would I even I'll go back just a teeny bit.
Okay.
I think I had been doing back end web development for like a long time, um, like 20 years or, some, I had businesses years ago. I was early on in web dev and, I had some businesses, I did music, I had startups, whatever. And I kind of wanted to do something different, which is why I got into OMSCS. I don't know if I was thinking about teaching right away. I definitely wasn't thinking about the PhD thing, you know. So I think my original motivation for going into OMSCS was just like, I was like in my late 30s, early 40s, and like, I wanted to do something different. And the OMSCS worked because, I looked around locally at some schools, but like, I was working, I couldn't,
Hmm.
go to class, do all this kind of stuff. I'm an adult and all that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so the OMS thing worked out, but I didn't even get into OMS. I wasn't even thinking about PhD. I was even thinking about
Gotcha.
what I was doing. I was just like, I want to do something different. So that's kind of what got me into OMSCS.
Cool. Okay, so you had already been working as a developer and
Yeah.
doing like a bunch of startup stuff and like music things. So then you're thinking, okay, well, let's try something new. Let's do the
Yeah.
OMSCS. And at that point, do you remember if the OMSCS had five, like however many specializations as it does today? I don't
Yeah.
really
I think
remember.
it has an additional one or so now. I did the interactive intelligence one.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, I think it was funny. The first classes I took were the HCI class and the
Yeah.
EduTech one.
Hmm.
I did like a lot of web stuff, so I was into like user interface stuff, and I was into like I don't know, I guess I was into education, but I think it was fortunate. Like, Joyner is like his videos are great. Like he is like made for this format. His videos are very engaging, and I think I was fortunate to like pick his stuff first. And to meet him very early on in OMSCS. So I think they were a good fit for me, and I think they were a good start. A good first class. Um, so yeah, I think it's yeah, that's kind of where I started. I think where I started with, but yeah, I think there was one or so less. There was a
Yeah.
like there was also like six. There's like 7, 8 new classes since like there's some game dev classes and other stuff. I would have
Mm,
loved if they were around during when I was, but those have been added since I finished, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in there
gotcha.
now.
Yeah, because you are you teaching now at Pace like game development?
Yeah, so I teach. Yeah, it's a long story. Should we start back a little? Should we get
Yeah, sorry.
up to
Let's
there?
let's let's
Let's
get
get
the
up
intro. I should have asked
to
that first. Yeah.
we'll get up to there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's awesome. So you did the joiner class. I also loved the joiner
Yeah.
classes myself. I thought they were really well made.
Yeah.
And so from there, I guess, oh yeah, you were a TA, I think. Is that right?
So yeah, I TA'd the EduTech class and I think I TA'd the HCI class eventually. Um, and I did a bunch of other projects. So I built this plagiarism detection system that was being used by OMSCS for a while. I think they maybe he's turned it in now. But
Hmm.
I built this system, plagiarism detection system, and I did a I did like a project. So, there is like in OMSCS, I did the project option or thesis option. Yeah, there's like a thesis option where you make a project and you write a thesis. You like defend your thesis. Like, I was like one of I think the first person to complete it. I think someone else maybe also started it or something.
Oh,
But
cool.
I don't think it's a option a lot of people do. I think most people just take like 10 classes, But
Yeah.
I did this thesis option, so I created this like plagiarism detection system. I also created there's a survey system that was used in some classes
Mm.
for a while. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I built that survey system. So I did a bunch of these, like besides the regular coursework, I also did a bunch of these projects that OMSCS ended up like using. I made a some scripts for like importing grades for all the TAs. Like I made this wicked
Nice.
script that would like take, like the TAs would yeah, like it would I wrote something for importing grades. So like I did a bunch
That's
of this
awesome.
like stuff that lived on beyond kind of like beyond me there. Um but yeah, so like I think like I got into the program, I started doing classes, I got involved in doing like some just projects and other things like, some independent study and thesis
Mm.
stuff. And yeah, and then, then like I obviously finished from there. Um, the next thing was after I finished the OMSCS, it opened up being able to adjunct at places. Not everywhere requires that you have a master's to adjunct, but a lot of places do. So um, to me, it was very random. Like I ended up adjuncting at Parsons School of Design in New York,
Okay.
and they needed someone super last. I got like lucky multiple times where like someone
Nice.
evaporated and they needed someone literally like a week before the semester started, and I happened to email them 5 minutes after that
Wow.
guy evaporated. Like, it's like someone sent an email saying they can't do it, and my emails got in a minute later.
That's
I've had that
awesome.
happen twice now.
Nice.
So I ended up adjuncting at Parsons School of Design, doing like game design, game development, like with Unity stuff.
Okay.
Um, and then I was an adjunct at NYU, also doing game design, game development, and I um, became an adjunct at. It was interesting. I started adjuncting at these places, and I realized that I wanted to do more of that. Like I wanted to. So I was still freelancing and stuff at the time, and I got to be like 40 something or so, and I'm like, I'll let someone half my age worry why the login page doesn't work, or like
Yeah.
I'll let someone half my age worry why some email didn't go out last night, some automated process that
Yeah.
didn't run. I'll let someone half my age worry about that. So I realized I wanted to switch into teaching more. So I
Mm.
was doing first, I was
Okay.
just doing freelance and startups and blah, blah, blah. And then like I was teaching one class, then like a couple classes a week. And then I started to shift over and then when I looked at full-time teaching positions, they were like PhD required, or PhD not required. Some were required, but a lot were like desirable that you had a
Yeah.
PhD.
Okay.
So I looked for places that had PhD programs in New York, and Pace had a PhD program in computer science. So I just emailed somebody there and I went and met with them. And they're like, why do you want a PhD in computer science? And I'm like, I want to get a full-time teaching position somewhere. And the guy at Pace was like, hey, I think we need someone to teach something here, some stuff here.
Nice.
I was like, great. So that guy
That's awesome.
introduced me to someone, the chair at the time, and they always need people to teach the beginner stuff, you know.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the people who've been teaching 20 years, like they don't want to teach
Uh,
if statements, what I mean, or
I see.
what
Yeah,
variables are. So
yeah.
I got into teaching the beginner stuff. So then that's kind of how that was like. I finished OMSCS, that opened up adjuncting. I started adjuncting at some places, realized I wanted
Mm.
to do that more, but full time maybe instead of like hustling so hard, with the adjunct stuff. Realized a lot of places preferred a PhD, was like, how can I get it? Where, how, and whatever. And then was like, I'll adjunct at this place now too.
Nice.
And then I got into the PhD program and started it that way.
That's so cool. Yeah, like a lot of people, like you mentioned, don't do the thesis option at Georgia Tech. I myself didn't really know it was an option. A lot
Yeah,
of just do like the courses, right? The
yeah,
10
yeah.
classes. But that's cool because like Dr. Joyner mentioned that he's like that you were the one of the first that did the thesis and then went on to do a PhD.
Yeah.
And that's actually a lot of people that question like ask on my YouTube channel about it because
Hmm.
they're wondering, like how hard is it to transition from an OMSCS to a PhD program? What for you, what was that transition like?
Sure. I think what was, you know, the some of the courses in OMSCS are pretty rigorous. The like the AI class, it's brutal.
Yes.
It was brutal for me. It was
Yeah, that
brutal for
one
me,
I honestly
right?
thought so
Like
too.
that was
Yeah.
brutal for me. I was like losing sleep on that one.
Yeah.
Other ones were fine, but there's a couple of them I think are the kind you lose sleep over. So
Right.
I think having that rigor of that class, and there are some others that are like that. And joiners classes, like the edutech class, like you did a lot of writing. Same thing with the
Mhm.
HCI class.
Yes.
And I worked in industry whatever 20 years. I didn't write pages of stuff. I wasn't looking up references. I just said stuff.
Right.
So I think the stuff from OMSCS, like the EduTech class HCI, where you write something every week or every other week, depending. I think that was good practice to just get back in, as like an adult. When else? I mean, unless you have a job that involves writing, like writing,
Yeah.
when are you gonna do that much writing or research and real research? Not there's a difference between doing research and looking things up online. That those are different. Those are different things, right? So I feel like some of those classes from MSCS had that research component to them, and kind of, I guess, kind of got me a little into my feet wet, whatever, into doing research and writing and stuff like that. So I think that helped going into the PhD thing. Um, there are some things, it's very, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my PhD, and I don't think everyone does. I think they might have something they're interested in or things you worked on before. But when I started the PhD program, you still take a few classes, took an algorithms, PhD algorithms class. But I took this computer vision class, where we did some, you know, image analysis, did some neural networks, convolutional neural networks, and I got really into that stuff. But if you asked me to, like, day one of my PhD, what I think I'm going to do a thesis on, I would have no answer for you. But once I got into doing this, like the neural network stuff, convolutional network, that stuff, I was like into it. I wanted to do more of it, wanted to work on it and stuff like that. So that's kind of, but yeah, I had no idea. I just, I had
Gotcha.
no idea what I was getting into. Or I didn't even really understand when you do your PhD, like your thesis for your PhD, it's, I also didn't really know what that meant going in, and I kind of learned, that your PhD thesis is not just like another paper.
Mm.
It's like just a bigger version of, it kind of is this magnum opus of everything you've been doing for the past bunch of years, of,
Wow.
all the work you've been doing and how it all kind of comes together in a way, um, where it leads, where it ends up, and, what is your contribution to the field of, mine was, some convolutional neural networks with medical images related to like knee osteoarthritis. So I had so,
Wow.
it's not like I contributed like, bubble sort, some algorithm, it's
Yeah.
like, you're making a contribution to some very specific thing. But that's kind of what it's about. It's like doing a ton of work to make some
Mm.
contribution that others can use for their stuff. But I didn't really
Gotcha.
know that. I didn't have that in my head going in.
Yeah, that's a good thing you mentioned about like the research and your thesis because I don't have a PhD, so I don't really know. But
Yeah.
like how you described the process, how you sort of realize as you were doing it, how it's different. Maybe could you describe like some of the research aspect of a PhD? Um, yeah,
Like
just
the
kind of
work,
like how,
like the work that I did, or
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, so it was interesting. I think like um my like the school has requirements for your PhD to be done. But my advisor had like their own requirements. And I had this fantastic advisor, Dr. Joan Shan, who was just like I was like blessed to have her as a advisor, just a fantastic like she really taught me what not just about doing research, but like what it means to do like PhD thesis. I mean, she really explained that kind of stuff to me. So the work that I ended up doing was in that professor she did a lot of like medical image analysis, and it was using the work I did specifically was related to osteoarthritis. So you can get osteoarthritis in any joints, load bearing joints, hips, your neck, knees, hands, when you get this stuff in your knees, we're not like a starfish. We're not going to grow back, So like basically the way, this arthritis stuff works is you have like your femur and your tibia and you have cartilage between them. And if that cartilage wears away, eventually, your bones might be grinding against each other, or you lose that gap. The gap gets smaller. So and you same thing on the hands, like in those joints, and each of your individual joints can have different amounts of arthritis, which is really bizarre.
Oh
But
man.
anyway, the work was about like looking at X-rays, looking at MRI images and MR images, and then you know classifying them, how severe, there's different levels of severity, and you're sort of classifying, so it's like you're just taking images, pumping them into some network model, and training it like these are not severe, these are extremely severe, these are medium, kind of stuff. And then in the end, you're like, what do you think this one is? And it's like, I'm 80% sure that's severe or not. And like, how do you get better and better accuracy, accuracy that's like closer or, close or above what humans can do. And then also, improving, just like improving other, like people, a lot of people have done this kind of work. So it's like improving at other people's work or showing a technique that other people can use to improve their stuff. So my final thesis, like the culmination of it, was to do a multimodal network. And basically, I have the X-rays are 2D images, like a regular image, right? An MRI is it's like 100. So on your knee, if it's like 160 slices across your knee, so it's like a cube of images, right? Like a 3D volume of images, right? So of your knee, like every whatever tiny fraction of a
Cool.
millimeter, right? So
Yeah.
the MRI is like a cube of images. Then the X-ray is like just taken from the front of your knees, let's say. And then so the MRI is like a cube of images. The X-ray is like a single image. And
Mm.
then I have the clinical information, which is like your BMI and your age, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like men and women are more likely to have different kinds of arthritis, and things like this. All these, so some of those factors weigh in also. So like my final network combines like the 3D MRI images with the 2D X-ray images with like the 1D
Whoa.
with the 1D clinical information. Yeah, getting that thing to run the first time was a lot of just like getting that thing to compile and run
Yeah.
was like so much work to get the thing to compile and work. And once it ran, I was like, okay, great. Now you need to tweak it and adjust the model and where things, like where do I connect in? First I have these things and they combine and output, then this thing comes in
Whoa.
and like where do I put that in where and how? And but just getting that thing to compile the first time was like,
That's
it's like
awesome.
a wow. Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. Like you can do what's really tough about this kind of doing research and this kind of stuff is, if I put in 100 hours to it, that doesn't mean anything comes out of it. You can put in a
Mm.
ton of work and get no results. And then sometimes, I mean, for me, it's probably what I think other scientists, if I call myself some scientist,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like all of a sudden it's like you sleep on it, come back the next day, all of a sudden something works. I'm like, whoa, what? Like something worked all of a sudden. and then you
Right.
just like bang on that for a while, on that for a while, and then that plateaus, and then you need to do something else, but yeah, sometimes the stuff works, sometimes it doesn't work. During doing a certain amount of, it doesn't, no guarantee that you're going to do a ton of work and have something come out of it. But
Gotcha.
I think, but you do, at least my experience is every once in a while something just pops in, and I'm like, cool, let's, I'll run on that. But yeah, that's
Nice. That's awesome.
kind of like what my research is about, and kind of my experience doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. They mentioned how you can spend 100 hours and it's like nothing's guaranteed. Like you're doing something new and never done before, and you are kind of like the pioneer in that field or that specific topic. So really, if you like wake up one day, you might have just a sudden realization. I've seen a YouTube video of a guy that's proved Fermat's last theorem, and that's exactly what happened. He
Yeah,
just kind of woke up one day and was realizing how to do it. But that's really cool. I like that. Also, your project, that sounds super awesome. I would love to see
yeah, it's
kind of
kind of
just
neat.
the like the program, how you got it to run and like different technical stuff. Because I've never done imaging. I've taken computer vision before, and that's really interesting, like getting identity classification, image segmentation, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But never to that degree. I think that's
yeah.
honestly super cool.
The I think like the computer vision is like for instance, if you were to look at my video right now, right?
Mm,
And the computer vision part will separate all the, like, where do I end and this chair begins, right? So the
yeah.
computer, where does that couch, my head end and that couch start? Where does this keyboard begin and end? That's like the computer vision part. The neural network part is, what is that thing? You know what I mean? Like the computer vision,
Yeah.
like, can segment. Let's say, let's say you're doing a segmentation problem. You're gonna, I
Yeah.
can segment out this thing and this thing and this thing, right? The
Right.
AI machine learning part is like, what is that thing? It's kind of,
Dang.
how do you label that? Like, what is that thing?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Kind of
No, that's so
interesting.
cool.
It's kind of like
It
a
involves
slight,
multiple.
yeah.
Yeah.
A
Yeah. It's
lot of
like
it's
different.
together though. You don't like have one without. I don't know. I feel like nowadays they're all kind of smushed.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have a lot of them all together.
Gotcha. Yeah. And okay, so since you did your PhD at Pace, I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you go about finding a program to do after the OMSCS? Like, what was your kind of
Yeah.
program search like?
I looked. I At first, I applied to Georgia Tech's. They have a PhD in HCD, like human centered design or something like that. It did not get accepted, and I think they accept like two people a year. Like I think it's a very
Oh,
small amount to that program.
wow.
Um, and I applied to a couple others like NYU and some other ones. And then I mean, Pace accepted me, and like I can
Yeah.
get there by subway in 30 minutes, door to door. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
wow.
it was
That's awesome.
like partially like they accepted me, and they were like nearby, and also I was gonna be able to adjunct there and do other things. So it kind of all came together. But I applied to a bunch of places, and um, they were the one who accepted me. My undergrad GPA was not good. When I was an undergrad, I was like, oh, C's get degrees, and then
Yeah.
when I went to OMSCS, my entire work ethic was like changed. I was like an adult, and what I mean? Like I worked hard, I really like, crushed it. But I probably didn't, I had that, but I think yeah, it was like 2.7 or something.
Well, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that,
You were like the
so
opposite of me. I did like poorly, and well, not poorly. I just was like B's get degrees for the OMSCS. For me, I was like barely skating by in those classes.
oh no. Um, yeah, but it was like, yeah, I mean, I wanted some place at first. I mean, it actually, everything worked out very well because if I started my PhD before COVID, but if I had gone to Georgia, like moved from my apartment here in New York, if I
Uh,
moved to Georgia or whatever, got an apartment down there, temporary, COVID would have happened eventually, and I would have had to come back up here. You know what I mean? I would have been, I
hmm.
don't know, paying rent in two places, or I don't know what,
Yeah.
to, so it worked out for me that these out of New York places, didn't accept me, or like once Pace accepted me, I was like, okay, cool, they're local. I don't have to change my life. I don't need to find an apartment in some other state I've never lived in, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of like part of it was like, you know, maybe I'm getting older and I'm like, I don't want to change my whole life, you know. Uh,
Right.
I want this life with a PhD, you know,
That's
you
awesome,
know.
dude.
Yeah, so I think
I,
it worked out that they were here and out and nearby.
yeah, like I'm glad it worked out because it sounds like are you from New York originally? How long
Yeah,
have
I
you lived
grew up
there
on Long
now?
Island, and I've been
Oh,
living in this very apartment in New York City for since 2001. I've been here
nice.
23 years in this exact apartment, sitting at this
Dang,
desk.
that's
It's a new
cool.
desk, but yeah, it's the same
Oh,
place.
nice.
Yeah,
Upgraded desk.
yeah,
Yeah. No,
new
that's so
place.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's
I've been here
awesome.
like 23 years in New York. Yeah,
Wow. No, that's so cool. Yeah, that seems to have worked out well for you. And now you're teaching uh game development. Maybe you could
yeah.
touch
Talk about
upon, yeah,
teaching.
what it's like, yeah, doing teaching.
Yeah, so I it's funny when the adjunct somebody was talking, oh, we need someone to teach, um it was really funny. Someone told me, I forget who, early on when I was adjuncting at different not just basic, a bunch of places. They were like, if you're into teaching beginner classes, you'll always have a job, you know? And
Mm,
they always needed someone to teach intro class, the first year stuff, like the first year stuff, the what you take fall, what you take spring, and like sophomore, early stuff, data structures, algorithms, Python, Java, whatever. So at first I was teaching that kind of stuff. And then I proposed while I was an adjunct, I proposed a new course for game development. And the class was like super popular, with students, and not just computer science students. I made it like a beginner class. So I had not just, I had like two-thirds computer science students, and the other third were like, I'd have like art majors, film majors in there. Like they just wanted to learn Unity and do game dev stuff, or they wanted to do game dev stuff. And a couple years I proposed once. Okay, so I was an adjunct for 3 years, and then I got a full-time position as it's like a full-time non-tenure position. Now I am tenure track. Starting this past September, I am now tenure track there. Because after, I
congratulations.
mean, I've been there 6 years, so I was like 3 years as adjunct, 3 years full-time, not tenure. Um, During the past bunch of years, I proposed a new major in game development. So this fall, just now, you could enter as a first year student as a game development major. And I also created a minor. So I have the, beginning stuff going on. So I teach a lot of I teach like some beginner computer science stuff. And I teach some of the game dev classes. And I also teach we have a class. I kind of modernized it recently. It's like the computer networks class, but I made it like more about like web services and like Amazon Web Services and like um
Cloud.
internet protocols and stuff, but
Okay.
also like doing cloud stuff, like working with cloud services and just getting, I think it's like super important. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of modified this. This is like one of the last classes you take. So what's cool is like these students in our last class are learning about, like computer science, are learning about how to make a web service, how to connect to a cloud service, how
Mm,
to have the web browser connect to those things that connect to the other things.
yeah.
So I kind of show that breadth of stuff. It's really cool material. So but that's like what I used to do for a living before. But ironically, before I was a professor, I used to do web stuff.
Mm,
So it's kind of like a full circle thing. So I can teach
nice.
from experience, which is cool. But yeah, so I teach either like this beginner stuff, game stuff, and I got a couple of one-offs like this kind of internet computing class,
Gotcha.
whatever it is.
Gotcha. That's cool. I like that you brought into the course like some new life, kind of the modernization
Yeah,
of
it's
cloud
I think it's an
services.
important thing if anyone wants to get into teaching
Oh
computer
yeah.
science is like some of the stuff does not change. Like I teach, I'm just like, for instance, I teach our data structures and algorithms class. You
Okay.
learn selection sort, bubble sort, insertion sort, merge sort, quick sort, Dijkstra's algorithm, some other things like linear search, binary search, that stuff, right? Linked lists. I was just teaching binary trees. Now, I learned about binary trees like in the 90s. Like it has not changed. Like we so I mean, not, I mean, maybe you don't use them like, professionally, I would use some other structures maybe, but I am teaching linked lists with the same drawings and binary trees with the same drawings my professor did in the late 90s, you know? So
Hmm.
some of that stuff stays the same, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff changes. My PhD is based on stuff that didn't exist before the year 2010, we had like an AI winter in the 90s, but in the past, since some of the stuff is from 2015 that we're using,
Yeah.
very recent stuff, so like the equipment I'm using didn't exist. These graphics cards didn't exist 15 years ago, 10,
Yeah.
15 years ago, So some of the stuff is doesn't change, and some of the stuff has to change, it needs to change and evolve and stuff like that, So you need to like keep I'm very into curriculum. We
Mm,
have like a committee for curriculum, and I run this curriculum committee, and I'm very into
nice.
curriculum. Like, keeping the Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, like making sure it moves with the times, that students are learning about cloud services. And I created a new elective about neural networks because in my mind, if you're a computer science student and you're going to graduate, you're an undergrad. If you're an undergrad and you're going to graduate in the year 2030, let's say, like you should know neural networks, right?
Right.
You wouldn't say that in 2010, right? But someone graduating in 2030, an undergrad student, they should know neural networks, I think,
Yeah.
So it's important to like update, some stuff is not as important, you got to shift priorities. Everything can't be important, so you got to kind of like
Right.
shift around a bit.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, I would say you're right with the neural networks. It was like a niche thing, kind of like brand new. Maybe it's useful now, but I mean nowadays it's obviously super useful. So
Yeah.
that's what I think is cool too with Georgia Tech's program. They're always adding new classes. Like you mentioned, they've added I'm not sure how many, but definitely while I've been there, at least two or three in like the 2.5 years or so. But like it's fun because they've added in like natural language processing was one. They've made a new specialization, HCI, other things like that. Yeah, so I think that's great. I like to
Yeah,
see
the
that
HCI
professors.
specialization wasn't there when I was there. It was added a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
And yeah, there's like been 8 classes or something added since I left, I think. Because I finished there 6 years ago or something like that now,
Nice.
7 years ago, now, something like that.
Gotcha. No, yeah, Dr. Greta, this has been so cool. Thank you so much. I have one
Sure.
final question.
Yeah,
This is
sure.
for the perspective of like a student, right, at the OMSCS, where maybe he or she are like on the fence of do I try to go PhD or kind of they're just trying to decide like what would your advice be on like how to decide and what to take into consideration?
Sure. You know, the you know, the PhD takes like, like 4 years, could be more or less, depends on circumstances. So and also like for me, I had to get published. My advisor wanted me to have published work before I could finish my PhD, right? So I had to get stuff published. And that stuff also, like I got rejected first 2 times to get something published. And then I got something published like the third time. This other thing I wrote published the first time. So
Nice.
there's a thing of like you're gonna be writing research to get publications. And that is another, just because you submit something doesn't mean someone's gonna accept it. So there is some variable time there. I think like uh, I think with OMSCS you need to be a bit self-motivated, because you're in your room there taking classes, that kind of thing. So I think if you're in OMSCS and successful in OMSCS, I think you can also be successful in a PhD because you have that self-motivation of, I just got to sit down and write. I just got to sit down and do this. So I think if you have, I think the skill set from doing OMSCS that you got to kind of like make up your own schedule, figure out like when you're going to do stuff. You got to get stuff done like within your own whatever. I think that stuff is translatable, to doing a PhD, where you need to do projects on, you're doing a lot of stuff on your own. You may collaborate here and there, but you need to really be very self-motivated. So I feel like um, that stuff will translate. But yeah, it's the PhD is at least 4 years away, a good 4 years away. Um, Also, like I said, I cannot stress how much you really need like a great advisor. And I think like that beginning of the PhD is like you're meeting some of the other professors and you gotta maybe find who's a good fit. Or beforehand, you find, before you even step foot in the place, you reach out to some professors there and try to get a vibe with them, see if you can get a Zoom meeting with them, tell them what you're interested in. Maybe there's someone at the university who's working in a very similar field and you want to find out if they have room in their research group or something. You have to, maybe reach out to them and see, how it goes. Um, if you're doing a PhD, like the other end is to like you're researching or teaching or both, um, you can get jobs as a researcher. There are people who do, research at companies, they hiring a bunch of PhDs, all the technology we're using, a lot of it was a bunch of PhDs working R&D somewhere,
Yeah.
so it's like, if you just want to code all day, like you don't need a PhD,
Gotcha.
if you want to do research or you want to teach other things, then I'd say the PhD is, definitely a way to go. If you have the time, the money, and the energy to do it, go for it. Do it.
Nice.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. I think it's good too. But yeah, it's like I think what's great is like once you get it, like I don't have to do anything else. I like a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, I took some qualifying exam thing. You need to take these like qualifying exams or whatever. I took some like machine learning qualifying exam thing or something like that, and I finished that test. I was like, I never need to take a test ever again in my life.
Oh,
You know what I
that's
mean?
awesome.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt great. I was like,
Man.
I never ever in my life need to take an exam ever again. Like, no, I can just say no. I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
no, I did all the things. Like, what else could I do? So I think that is a bonus. I'd put that in there as a bonus. You never need to ever do another exam in
You
your
can
life.
call it done. You can call it
Yeah,
done for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gaida. I really appreciate you on the channel. Is there anything you'd like to tell students at home watching? You can plug anything you're up to these days, like online or whatever. It's time is yours.
Um, I don't know. I don't have much going on. Oh,
That's good.
my school that I'm at, Pace,
Yeah.
we have hired as adjuncts about 3 or 4 people from OMSCS.
Oh,
So, like I said, we're always looking for adjuncts to teach.
wow.
So me, I'm not going to teach beginner Python, whatever, next fall. Like I'm done. Like
Yeah,
I've done
okay.
my time. Yeah, done my time. So at the school I'm at, we have someone from OMSCS teaching. Um, they're teaching like a Java class, graduate Java class thing. I've had someone in OMSCS teaching our 120 our Python intro class. And I had someone in OMSCS teaching an undergrad Java class. So I've had at least 3 people, and I just talked to another guy earlier today, another OMSCS grad. He's graduating in a few weeks, or whatever. I just talked to him about teaching at my school because he's in New York, you know?
Okay.
So my plug would be if you are within distance of my school Pace at if you're within New York area, we have a location in Manhattan and we have a location in Pleasantville. It's like 1 hour north of New York City. If you're within a reasonable distance of either of those places, and you're looking to get into adjuncting and you have finished your thing, you should definitely reach out to me because like I said, we're always looking for adjuncts. We're always to teach, a lot of beginner stuff. Also, some special topics like some of the electives and things are great opportunities for adjuncts. But yeah, that's my plug.
Awesome.
I always need adjuncts. I need people. If you teach game dev stuff, I'm gonna really need you soon too.
Nice. No, that's so cool.
I
Thank
need
you so
someone for
much.
VR, AR. Yes, in adjuncting, you're in the New York area, um, even our remote classes, like the ones that are still synchronous, or they still need to be. We can't hire someone from like 10 states away.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
if you're watching, you're in the New York area, you're thinking about adjuncting, reach out to me, and I can talk to you all about it. Even if it's not my school, if it's some other school you're interested in, I'm happy to talk about that kind of stuff. But I definitely need some adjuncts
Awesome.
for
That's
the fall. For the spring is I think the spring is good, pub, but the fall can definitely need some people.
cool. I'm hopeful that people watch this and find out and then can contact you. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Dr. Guida. I will let you go. All right. So, appreciate your time so much. Thank you for
All right.
joining the
See ya.
channel.